What is going on with the Dallas Cowboys secondary? That's what we're going to break down today. We're going to look at 7 clips, 5 from the field, 2 from the red zone. I'm going to break down why there are so many struggles within that back end. And really, if you looked at the coverage matrix heading into the Bears game, it's almost laughable. These are college-like matrix. When we look at some of these and these really tight triangles, these high peaks where we have high variability, that just doesn't exist in the NFL. Most NFL defenses are going to play around the NFL average, which is in the gray in the box that you see. They're just going to shift to more man, or they're going to shift to more middle of the field open coverage, so quarters and cover 6. That's just not the case in the Cowboys. Eberflus, we know, is a cover 3 coach that runs Tampa 2. He's a zone defense coach, but he's not unwilling to play man. What we're seeing really is a lot of personnel issues where you've essentially had Trayvon Diggs as a shell of himself. The safeties are not communicating very well in zone, and this is showing up in areas against offensive coordinators, especially like Ben Johnson, who can really scheme some open looks. That's what we're going to break down today. And look, regardless of what you believe of the Micah Parsons trade, he would not be solving these issues. So let's examine the film. Let's look at where these communication breakdowns and where these personnel breakdowns are coming. And then let's look at it objectively and see, can this be fixed? Because this is the worst secondary in the NFL going into week 4. This first one is a really nice scheme here by Ben Johnson. They're in 13 personnel. They're going to shift into essentially a 22 personnel look. So you have 3 tight ends on the field, but you have a 22 personnel look. What does that mean? That means that we have 2 backs in the backfield, we have 2 tight ends, and we have 1 receiver. What we're going to get is a post route with an out and up. And so we are actually going to hit the out and up. The nice thing about this and the added value here is that we're going to create essentially a flood concept or a sideline stretch. We are playing cover 3 in base. So there's nothing out of the ordinary here. You can see that the corner is going to bail. And then we get the play action. And again, go back. This is going to be on first down. This is early in the game. This is Ben Johnson. They want to establish the run early to set up these play actions. Well, he's taking advantage of a really aggressive defense against a 13 personnel and now a 22 personnel look. This is a run look. Watch the linebackers all fly upfield. You can see all 4 of these guys fly upfield. We even have the corner flying upfield. But then as they notice that it's play action, everybody loses the tight end. So you have the corner who has to take the vertical. And this is a really good job by this receiver working vertical to buy the corner. If he were to have broke at 10 and gone this way, the corner would have then been able to identify the tight end heading here on the wheel and probably would have been able to slough off and allow the post to then take that post. So the post safety taking the post. That's not what happens. And the reason why you start here is just because some of these are schemed open looks. Now, what is a way that you could fix this? Well, 57 here could, once he identifies this, turn and latch on, but instead he's going to spot drop. Now, notice he takes a little bit of a peek and he doesn't see him. Okay, so he's a little bit lost. The only time he sees him is now when the quarterback has thrown the ball to this empty space. This linebacker here probably should have kept climbing at a 45 or flipped open to identify the tight end so then he could hug it up. What you want to do as a defense is you always want to force the low hanging fruit. This is a negative throw, meaning that it's behind the line of scrimmage. We want to force that throw, but instead we have this nice area here. We get a really good schemed up play, and this is a nice opener for the Bears, but it's going to kind of be a red alert, red flag for this Cowboys defense as we go further into the game. Here we have one of our first 3rd downs of the game, and we're going to be playing man coverage. So again, this is not Eberflus just going completely away from man coverage. He did play man coverage. In fact, when he played man coverage against Russell Wilson, they got absolutely smoked. They had 11 snaps of it. I think Russell Wilson was 8 for 11. I think there were 2 touchdowns off of that. 2 of the longer ones were off of man coverage. Well, here's another example. This is clearly man coverage. And what we want to watch Diggs at top. So what Diggs is preparing for is what's going to be kind of a jam bail. So he's going to shock the receiver. Notice how he kind of steps, jams, and then he's going to bail underneath. Well, he slips. And when you make this decision and it doesn't go correctly, or you don't have help over top, this is going to be a touchdown all day long in the NFL. This is pass and catch. This is routes on air. And really, again, this highlights too, this is one of those, hey, he got unlucky. But even if we look right here, even if he's able to do this, he's got to get back around. Rome Odunze probably has ownership of this route. And you can see he was going to Rome Odunze from the get-go. Why? Because as a quarterback, I have off coverage here. I have off coverage here. I have an isolation, and I'm also seeing the body posture of the corner that this is going to be a jump jam or he's going to hit that receiver and then he's going to have to bail. I'm taking that all day long. Odunze also has been playing really, really well this year. So why not go after that matchup? And this is exactly what happens. He jump jams, he slips, and then this is a touchdown. So this is one of those issues where this is a little bit personnel, but also let's make a better decision. Let's not necessarily do this. I would rather see a two-hand jam here instead of this little jump jam and then bail. If you're going to do this, you got to have help. He doesn't have help. He slipped, and it's a touchdown. So you can chalk it up to pure luck, or you can be mad at Trayvon Diggs not knowing the situation, but it's another touchdown, another long ball against the Cowboys. Here is another long bomb touchdown for the Bears against the Cowboys. This is a little bit different because this is a trick play. This is going to be a flea flicker. You're going to get 12 personnel. They're going to get into a 21 personnel look. So you're really run oriented. It's first down. It's on 35. You're going to see the fake handoff. The DBs here are all loose and they're backing up exactly where they need to be. And then you see that it's kind of this handoff, and then he almost waits too long to flick this. We actually have penetration by the defensive line. But you can see notice how the line is not firing out. Now, a lot of times corners are not looking at the line and they're not looking to see if they're firing out. They're really looking at the quarterback here in this zone and they're getting clues. But here's the other thing that I noticed here is that we get a jog off. He's not really he's looking at the post here. We get a jog off down here. He holds his hands up. Again, these are all red flags for, hey, I need to be thinking of something. And then we see the running back go. The corner gets a little bit greedy and goes. We get the toss back. And then I think this is over 60 yards in the air. Everybody bites on this. And so when it rains, it typically pours when your secondary isn't very good. This is another example of, hey, this is first down. We need to stay on top, attack the man. Okay, the man's not attacking me. I see the ball in the air. By that time, it's too late. This post safety has a guy running in front of them. This guy's wide open. There's nothing that you can do about it. And this isn't necessarily a coverage bust, but it's more like, let's look at context clues. I should be reading even in zone, I should be reading this off ball receiver. Okay, he's jogging off. He's looking at the post. I should be looking for anything coming off this way. I need to be prepared at the sticks. I don't need to be real aggressive on these runs. If it's cover three, let's be honest, these three guys are secondary support. They don't need to be up there really quickly. You see them flying towards the ball. It gets tossed. By the time they realize it, it's too late and it's a touchdown. So it's like, look, this isn't necessarily skill. This isn't necessarily scheme. We got beat because our eyes were wrong, and we got beat because I was a little bit too greedy to fit the run. So I don't know how you want to take this, but this is a gadget play, and they got beat on it. And when you get beat on gadget plays, yeah, sure, you can answer it up for pure luck. But at the end of the day, when it rains, it pours, and the secondary is still struggling against the Bears. Okay, we have 3rd and 9 again. We're 3rd and long. We are going to have man coverage again. So again, Eberflus is calling man coverage, but we're going to have a bust. And that bust is going to happen with this linebacker here. So notice how you can tell everybody is playing man coverage. In fact, we're running cover one robber. So we're going to have a robber work to the middle of the field. We're going to close the post at the snap of the ball. Everybody's matching up. So once we get into the pocket, you can see 18's on the tight end, 20's diving down off 15. We have our robber who, if he needs to cut this really quickly, he can. You can see 7 is on the receiver. We have 27 on the other receiver. But here's the problem. We have a running back check releasing out to the flat. And the guy in charge of the running back is so concerned about Caleb Williams' running ability that he's spying the quarterback and not taking the back out. So there is no one responsible for the back in this case. All Caleb Williams does is flick it to the running back. And because of the pass rush, you can see here, these guys are kind of waiting behind the line. They're kind of just moving across. And because, there's no one guarding the running back, he just flicks it to it. And now he's got two lead blockers in front of him, making the problem that we didn't cover the guy even worse. And so all he has to do is flick it. And then he goes out. And then we just have poor tackling, poor angle by 18. And 4 is able to escape into the middle of the field. Luckily, we do have pursuit. We have guys running down the field, but this is another big game. And should not have happened. If we go back to the beginning, if anything, the ball should have come out to 15 right here and then try to get it. But instead, he flicks it back. And now maybe this was a called screen, but still, if he just does his job and he traces with the back, this is probably a much less of a gain. And then we get into the field of play, and 18 just kind of whiffs on this tackle. He doesn't do a very good job of cutting him off, just kind of runs by him in another big gain in man coverage. So the 2 times that we've seen man coverage, we've seen bust. Then we go back. Remember what I said against the Giants. We play man coverage. We give up a lot of yards. So we can't just, as a coach on Eberflus, this is why he's not running man coverage. He's not running man coverage because I've got people, but this could also be coaching. Hey, don't worry about the running back. And actually, we saw this. And so let me put some context to this. We saw this against the Vikings. The Vikings actually played 2-man and just didn't guard the running back. They just put a spy on Caleb because they were like, he won't throw it to the running back. Well, guys, this is week 3. Coaches watch their own film. They cell scout. A lot of times in the NFL, it's more about the cell scout than it is about the actual opponent scout, because a lot of times you have an idea. Hey, we know that we're going to get this coverage, or we know that we're going to get this coverage rotation, or we know that this personal matchup is going to be here. Well, the Vikings didn't guard the running back. Caleb didn't throw it to the running back. Okay, we're in week 3. We're not guarding the running back. So what does Ben Johnson do? He creates a running back screen, or he makes sure Caleb understands, hey, when you don't have a guy open or you don't like the play, throw it to the running back. And here we have a big play by the running back. So again, we're in week 3. Figure it out. You got to make sure, if we're going to spy Caleb, we got to make sure that we have somebody on that running back, and we don't. And here's an example again of man coverage failing the Cowboys. Another first down pass by the Bears. One of the best ways to attack cover 3 is to attack the deep middle of the field. And you're going to either run overs, and it doesn't really matter what side you bring them from, but we're going to run some over routes. Another popular concept in the NFL right now is the wave. It was really big last year. So what we're going to get is really, on this sense, we're going to get an over, and then we're going to kind of get like a post route. But then from this backside, we're going to get a really deep post. So you can see that we have these 2 routes pushing this way, and then we have one route pushing the opposite direction. You can see Diggs here is communicating probably, hey, watch the cross country, right? That's a lot of teams call it cross country. So you can see he right here, 7 is giving the sign, hey, watch the cross, watch the cross. It's cover 3. And so what you end up getting is 3 buzz is from depth. So he's going to drop in to this strong hook area. We're going to have a flat. We're going to have a flat. Because he's the strong hook, this is telling me that this is the weak hook, and he actually needs to be the vertical drop. So he is the low. He is the high. It actually should probably be flipped. But what they're trying to do, and I get what they're trying to do, is we actually want to drop away from the passing string so that we can pick up these over routes. And that's kind of what ends up happening here. But you don't have anybody for the deep over. So 20 sloughs into the middle of the field. Diggs gets completely turned around on the post player. So what we end up having is I'm slinging to the post. I'm in the post. I'm now on the outside of the post. So we end up having 3 guys on the post. We have 2 guys on the low over, and we don't have anybody in the deep over. This is just an easy pitch and catch for the quarterback into the middle of the field and another big gain on first down. Now, if you're asking this, coach, how would you then defend this? Well, if they've already given a kind of a communication that, hey, these things are going to be over, we need to make sure that we understand that. Well, then this post player probably needs to bite down on this. And then he needs to sling. He stays outside the numbers in case it does do this. But if it comes back to the post, the corner takes in the post. There's just really no communication. Diggs is the only one that communicates. These safeties say something. Probably this safety is just telling him, hey, you need to go down. Well, look, we've got him cut off. I don't necessarily think the linebacker gaining any depth is going to help here. He could have roboted, roll over and back into this thing to help out a little bit. If Diggs is telling you, hey, we're going to have this, the easiest way to defend this is for him to keep working with the post, him to take the deepest over. This one's obviously contained because there's two white shirts in front of him. So I need to get into this area for this. I'm going to hang on top in case this goes vertical, and then I'm going to eventually matriculate into the post. That's how this is taken. And look, I think Rex Ryan, what was it, last weekend, was talking about the Steelers are getting killed on. He calls it Speedo, which is just a true cross country. This isn't the wave with the extra. So yes, these are difficult, but these have been on film now for over a year. This was a trend that you've had for over a year, and we still don't have the communication piece here. This is an easy pitch and catch. And look, now they're in scoring range. They're inside the 10, which means they're probably going to score a touchdown. And if not, it's a chip shot field goal. So they're already within points. And another example of just zone breakdowns within this defense, especially on early downs. It's not just in the field that they're having problems. It's in the red zone. And you can see here we're going to get a stack. And then we also have to account when you get a YY, so two tight ends, I call this a wing, that's a stack as well. So we have two stacks. We have a stacked receiver. We have stacked tight ends. The running back is set, but there's some width here. So I'm not going to necessarily consider this a bunch. But what you're going to see is these two DBs are essentially going to play almost like a quarters technique. And then you're going to see these two DBs are going to be playing over those two tight ends. The linebackers are going to essentially funnel the back. So at the snap of the ball, you see that we just have, this is just vertical routes. And so if we're going to play this, we're going to give a down technique or a sky technique, meaning that I'm going to bang the buzz. I've got the flat. I've got to play midpoint of 1 and 2. There's no communication piece here to tell me that that's what was communicated. You have the safety working vertically. The corner is clearly taking the outside vertical. You now have essentially a quarters concept over this stack. You can see that I've got cap vertical inside. I've got cap vertical outside. We have our kind of adjuster underneath that bang to buzz. I'm going to stay in the curl, and then I'm going to work out to the flat. I'm going to sit in the curl. I'm going to work out to the flat. Well, we have man to man. What did I tell you about the running back? The linebackers have the running back. So please tell me who is going to take this guy that's working into the back of the end zone. This is another communication piece in zone where the safeties are saying one thing, but the corners are doing something else. And so again, there's a communication piece. Hey, look, you've got that guy. Okay. There was something said. So either the corner's going rogue or the safety communicated it and then didn't run what he communicated with. So if you're pointing down, hey, look, you've got him, or hey, I've got him, and then you don't take him, that just looks really bad. I mean, 20's over here, he takes the vertical. He's got to take the vertical. Even if he would have played midpoint, I don't necessarily think this would have been a touchdown because you could easily throw it to the back pylon and he would cap it off. But this is too easy. These throws right here, again, we're looking at throws that Caleb Williams makes routes on air. These are just pitches and catches, and you see it week in and week out. This is an NFL defense. This is 50-50 on the coaches and the players. These guys are professionals. Everybody here is getting paid. We're seeing communication. This is now 2 clips in a row. We've seen communication, and then we don't run anything that looks like we've communicated this. This is too easy, and Caleb Williams scores another touchdown for the Bears in the red zone. Here we are into the third quarter. It's 4th and 4. It's 24-14. You're down by 10 points. If you give up a touchdown, it's now 31-14. Game's probably going to be over. It would be really, really difficult, especially against Ben Johnson, who is totally fine running the ball. Again, I mentioned this earlier in the video. The Cowboys aren't elite stopping the run. So this is not a team that can necessarily stop the run or create some game control. All you have here is an empty set. Now, what the defense is doing, this is a typical red zone defense, is that you're going to create two triangles. So you've got a triangle here, you've got a triangle here, and then this linebacker is going to hinge open and kind of just squat in the middle. And he's just looking for any trash coming back. The corners are going to overplay the fades. You're going to have wall builders in the overhangs. And then these safeties are really just vision players. Okay. And they really don't want to drop any lower or any higher than the bottom of the numbers on this, at least through the beginning of this. But I'll show you exactly what happens. So all we get is all this is Y cross. So you have a climb route by 14. He's going to go under the Sam, over the Mike. That's why it's called an USAM. Understand? It's called USAM. Understand? Over Mike. Also called a stair step. You're going to get a flat push. Notice how these guys do a really good job. I'm going to take that. I'm moving out. Corner never communicates to the safety at all that there's a vertical route coming back. Once the safety sees this and he understands that the Mike linebacker is going to latch on, I need to track my eyes. So 4 is actually bringing me to this. What should have happened is as I see him go, I am going to turn and get my vision cone, and I'm going to see this receiver. And what that will then allow me to do is I will roll over and back through him. I will cut him off. The corner now is going to take the flat. He now becomes the vision player. If he escapes the pocket, he can take that. We are now going to lock up here. You can see here, he has taken the out. These guys have sandwiched that receiver. There is no one in the middle of the field. And our safety, who should have looked opposite, does not look that way. He's clearly just looking at the quarterback. And if you watch the quarterback, you will watch him make completion. So he gets a little bit of an escape. Notice how the Mike does a really good job. I told you he was going to latch onto that. Okay, man coverage here. Safety helps out on the deep. This safety still, he's never left. This is the difference between playbook and actual real play application. Playbook says, don't go any deeper than the bottom of the lettering. Well, someone brought, or you got to be carried in. Well, someone carried you in. You just never saw them. Again, another pitch and catch that an NFL quarterback, even the worst one in the NFL, is going to make. A high school quarterback is going to make that throw. A college quarterback is going to make that throw. This is another example of not understanding zone and not communicating clearly and not understanding where we are. So, this one you can blame on coaching. But throughout this entire video, we've seen coaching, we've seen scheme, and we've seen players just kind of degrade over time. And the Bears really highlighted a lot of the problems that we've seen in the first 2 weeks and now continuing to see in week 3. So how does this get fixed? And is it even fixable? I think a lot of these issues are fixable. I think the problem that we're having is there's a lack of understanding from the defensive backs, and which tells me there's a lack of coaching from the coaches. So at some point, we are what we repeatedly do. So if the coaches are giving you these cues and they're telling you where your eyes are going, and you're just not doing it as a player, and you're just revolting because we've been in a man scheme or we've been in a simple zone scheme, which I don't buy. Because we did not have these problems with Zimmer. Now, Zimmer didn't run a lot of coverage disguise, but he ran the whole swath of coverages. Now, Eberflus, in almost all of these, is not disguising any coverage. This isn't a coverage rotation where they put a safety in a bind or they ask the corner to do something that he normally doesn't do. None of those were that. We don't see any disguises from the Cowboys. We see them lining up and playing, and we either have a guy falling down, or my eyes aren't in the right spot, or in zone we're communicating, but then we're not following through with the communication. So look, I'm not blaming the coaches. I'm not blaming the players. And at the end of the day, what we're seeing on this is 50-50, is that the players are not executing. And sometimes it looks like the players don't understand what they're trying to do. So there has to be some sort of a meeting or some sort of a way that we need to come together and we need to figure this out. I do think that it can get figured out. I don't necessarily think that it's going to raise the level. I don't see like we're going to look back at the end of the year and be like, well, this was a top 10 secondary after week 3. A lot of these issues are personnel based, that you have a lot of man dominant players on this roster. They're being asked to play with vision. A great example of this is Derek Stingley under Lovie Smith. His first year, people were like, oh my gosh, how did this guy get drafted in the top 5? You have a man dominant corner who played a lot of press and played a lot of man coverage. All of a sudden has to go play cover 2. One of the hardest coverages to teach is cover 2, especially at the corner spot, because your eyes have to be right. Do I take the flat? Do I continue to sink? I need to read the tempo of the number 2 receiver, how that affects the way that I play the flat. And all of these have to go in. Well, this is what we're seeing. You thought that it might have been able to get ironed out in the preseason, but obviously that's not the case. We're still having issues, and the Cowboys have to figure this part out. Do not blame Micah Parsons. Do not blame Jerry Jones for the trade for Micah Parsons, because this secondary was probably not going to be very good to begin with. You have guys that are kind of hitting the age wall and Diggs. You have man dominant secondary players now playing zone. You got to get it figured out. We got to see this, but hopefully through this video, you were able to see where these breakdowns are happening, that it's and really why Eberflus won't just play man, even though, coach, we have man dominant players. Why don't we play man? Well, we can't even stop them in man. So what are we going to do? At least in zone coverage, we saw this again after the Rams won the Super Bowl. They kind of had this kind of diaspora of players that left, and the Rams played a lot of soft cover 3 under Raheem Morris. And it was like, well, what are they doing? It's like, well, they don't have the secondary players. So what covers do you play? You play just country cover 3. And you hope that you can just, stay on top of everybody. But if you're just getting beat constantly deep, it might actually be the talent on the field, which I think at the end of the day, that's what we're seeing. And we need a complete reset in Dallas.